This is a presentation on Chapter 6, Making the Transition to Professional Ethics in Nursing. So ethics is a system of standards or morals or moral principles that direct actions as being right or wrong, what you ought do or ought not do. So there's 4 categories of ethics. You have meta-ethics, which seeks to understand the nature of ethical statements or attitudes. So it asks the question of how do we know what is right or wrong. Normative ethics is the study of what you should or should not do. For example, lying or cheating is wrong and giving to charity is good, but not ethically mandatory. Descriptive ethics are judgments about the righteousness or wrongness of things in terms of people's opinions. So for example, to say a movie has a bad rating. The difference between normative and descriptive ethics is normative ethics is the study of how people ought to behave, and it is aimed at sorting out what behaviors would be best, while descriptive ethics is the study of how people do behave and how they think they should behave. Applied ethics is the application of theory to the real world situations. It's devoted to the treatment of moral problems, practices, and policies. So dealing with like abortion and euthanasia, things like that. So this is a category mostly used by nurses. So values are basically the worth that you assign to an idea or action. So how much value you give it, how much worth you give it. Does it mean a lot to you? Is it important to you? How much value do you put on family? How much value do you put on religion? How much worth do you give it? And so your values can be affected by your age, your experiences, your maturity level. So younger individuals might not put as much worth or value on things like maybe religion or something of that sort. Your morals are concerned with basically deal with right and wrong behaviors. The law is thought of as a minimum ethic that is written and enforced. The purpose of the law is to protect the rights of one person from the infringement by another person. Nursing ethics are similar to, but also different from, the legal aspects that regulate your nursing practice. So nursing ethics are values and ethical principles that govern your nursing practice, conduct, and other relationships as well. An ethical dilemma is a situation in which an ethical decision is required between choices that are equally distasteful. So meaning somebody's not going to be happy about the decision that's made either way. Most hospitals have an ethics committee that's comprised of nurses, doctors, clergy, social workers, and other allied health members to help resolve these issues. So the ethics committee is not just there just for healthcare ethical issues. Whatever ethical issue might be going on within the institution, the ethics committee is there to help resolve those issues. The American Nurses Association has published the Nurses Code of Ethics that defines 9 provisions to guide the practice of nursing. And I've also posted those to Blackboard for you to take a look at and view. But it discusses professional relationships for nurses. So nurses, have to practice with respect and inherent dignity and worth to every individual, whether it be your patient or your colleague or whoever. You have to practice, maintain a level of dignity and respect for everyone. Your commitment is to your patient. The nurse promotes and advocates and strives to protect the health and safety and rights of their patients. The nurses are accountable for their individual nursing practices. So take a look at those. The nurse owes the same duties to herself as to others. So go ahead and make sure you look at those, so you know what the 9 provisions are, that helps to guide the practice of nursing. Okay, let's go through each of these 9 provisions. Provision 1 says the nurse practices with compassion and respect for the inherent dignity, worth, and personal attributes of every person without prejudice. So included in that is respect for human dignity, relationships to patients, the nature of health problems. So basically that means you respect and care for all patients regardless of their illnesses. So no matter what illness they have, you cannot discriminate against them. Maybe a person has HIV and you don't agree with their lifestyle and how they got HIV. It doesn't matter. You can't discriminate against that person or have any prejudices against them. You have to care for them just as you would any other patient. Show respect for all for human rights of all individuals. The right to self-determination. So self-determination is the same thing as autonomy. So a patient has the right to self-autonomy, which means that they can make their own decisions without any pressure from you or anyone else. Whatever choices they make, you have to respect those decisions. In relationship with colleagues and others. So meaning not only do you treat your patients with respect, but you treat each other. You treat your coworkers with respect. You treat the patient's family members with respect. Anybody on the healthcare team, you should be treating everyone with respect, whether they're your patient or not. All right. Provision number 2, the nurse's primary commitment is to the patient, whether an individual, family, group, community, or a population. So included in that is primacy of the patient's interest, conflict of interest for nurses, collaboration. Okay, so you must put the patient first, is what that means. You must put the patient first. Be an advocate for your patient. Collaborate with others to resolve any conflicts for your patient and provide patient-centered care. And so that means the care should not be just a generalized, you shouldn't be just doing a generalized care plan. The care plan should be centered around your patient's needs. Additionally, it's based on your patient's goals, not your goals. What you want to see is patient-centered. And so you provide patient-centered care by collaborating with other disciplines. So all disciplines should be working towards the same goals for that patient. Also, a part of that provision is professional boundaries. You should respect your patient boundaries, meaning you shouldn't be putting your patient's information out there on social media or any other platforms of that nature. Provision 3 says the nurse promotes, advocates for, and protects the rights, health, and safety of the patient. So included in that is privacy and confidentiality. You respect patients' right to privacy and confidentiality, meaning only people caring for the patient should have access to patient records. So if I'm a nurse working in a hospital, just because I work in that hospital and I'm interested in what's going on with the patient, if I'm not caring for that patient, I don't have a right to go and access that patient's information. I could even be a family member working in the facility where my family member is hospitalized. I still don't have a right to go and access that patient's file just because I work there or because I'm a family member. Only people with care, providing care for that patient, have a right to access that patient's file. Same thing as nursing students. You go to a facility, you're assigned a patient. So if you get assigned a patient, then you have a right to access that patient's records, but you don't have a right to access all your classmates' patients. Also included in that is protection of patients in research. Patients have a right to participate in or not participate in research. If they do participate in research, you have a right to protect them from any, harm. Just because I'm participating in research doesn't mean you have the right to do whatever or cause any whatever harm to me for the purpose of research. Standards also included in this provision are standards and review mechanisms, meaning nurses should be using a standard of practice to provide care, or using evidence-based practices to provide care for our patients. In this provision also includes acting on questionable practices. Nurses must take action against any unsafe or unethical practice that may harm our patient. You have to stand up for your patient. And addressing impaired practices, which means the nurse must report impaired workers. So if a worker comes to you see a worker coming to work, they're intoxicated or they're sleep deprived or something that's preventing them from being able to provide safe care for their patients, then you have a right to report that person to the supervisor, because that could potentially harm the patient. No, it's not your patient, but it's a patient within the facility that could potentially be harmed. And so you have a right to report that. I've heard people say, well, that's not my responsibility. I'm not the supervisor. It is your responsibility, because you have a right to protect the patients. And so you should be reporting that. You should be promoting a culture of safety within your facility. Okay, provision 4 says the nurse has authority, accountability, and responsibility for nursing practice, makes decisions, and takes action consistent with the obligation to provide optimal care. So included in that provision is acceptance of accountability and responsibilities. Nurses are accountable for their practice. We've said time and time again, if you question something, you're unsure of something, you're uncomfortable about something, then you need to seek out the correct answer before doing any task. Just because a physician orders something, if you suspect something or have a question about something, then it's your responsibility to go to that physician and question that physician before you carry out that task. If the physician orders something and you question it but don't say anything and just go ahead and give the medication, and a negative effect happens to that patient, then yes, you can be held accountable for administering the medication. Accountability and responsibility for nursing judgment and action. Answer to yourself and others for your actions. If you accidentally give the wrong medication, speak up, say something so that the right thing can be done to try to correct the situation and harm doesn't come to your patient. Don't just sit back scared that you don't want to get in trouble or whatnot. You need to speak up and take accountability for your actions. And then delegation of nursing activities also falls under there. So make sure the tasks you delegate is appropriate to delegate. You want to also follow up on any tasks that you may have delegated to someone. Number 5, provision 5, the nurse owes the same duties to self as to others, including responsibility to promote health and safety, preserve wholeness of character and integrity, maintain competence, and continue personal and professional growth. So, included in that is a duty to self and others. So, moral self respect. Um, Speak up for yourself. And you want to make sure others respect you. Like I've said before, sometimes you have physicians that will be mean and try to bite your head off or whatnot, but you have a right to be respected. Whether it's the physicians, whether it's the patients, or whomever it might be, you have a right to be respected and speak up for yourself and let others know that you expect them to respect you as well. You expect them to respect you. Professional growth and maintenance of competence. So do a self-assessment. What things do you need to learn? Go and learn those. Don't never stop learning. Continuously learn new information. Healthcare is always changing. Nursing is always changing. Continue to learn different things. Stay competent as a nurse. You can't be a proper advocate for your patient if you're not competent. You don't want to go and perform a task if you're not competent in that task and can potentially harm your patient. So stay competent and never stop learning. You can never know everything there is to know, so you should always be learning new things. Wholeness of character. You want to make sound decisions that are in the best interest of your patient. Promotion of personal health, safety, and well-being. Make sure you're promoting your own health, because you need to be healthy so that you can properly take care of your patients. If you're not healthy yourself, you're sleep deprived or whatnot, you're sick yourself, you can't properly take care of your patients. So promotion of personal health, safety, and well-being. Also included in that is preservation of integrity. Don't put yourself in a compromising position that could harm your patient or put your license at risk. You work too hard to receive your license. So don't do anything that could potentially put that at risk. All right, provision number 6. The nurse, through individual and collective action, establishes, maintains, and improves the moral environment of the work setting and the conditions of employment conducive to quality health care. So included in that is influence of the environment on moral virtues and values. And so a nurse with high virtues is likely going to be an honest nurse. Virtues are habits of character, so you want to create good habits. So like I said, if you have high virtues, you're likely to be honest. Also included in that is influence of the environment on ethical obligations. Be involved in policy and procedure writing. Make sure practices are appropriate on your unit. Get involved in those writing those policies and procedures. And also included in that is responsibility of healthcare environment. Don't take shortcuts. Do the right thing to create a positive healthcare environment for your patient. When you get out into the real world nursing field, you probably will see some nurses taking shortcuts, but those shortcuts can get you in trouble in the long run. You want to do the right thing. Do the right thing. Don't try to take shortcuts, because those shortcuts can get you in a lot of trouble. All right, provision number 7. The nurse, whether in research, practice, education, or administration, contributes to the advancement of the profession through research and scholarly inquiry, professional standards development, and generation of nursing and health policies. So included in that, contributions through research and scholarly inquiry. So you should be doing things, to help shape healthcare policies, active involvement in nursing healthcare policy, basically. Get involved even as a new nurse. get on a committee that's going to help shape practices for nursing. Develop and maintain implementing professional standards in clinical, administrative, and educational practice. Knowledge development, dissemination, and application to practice. So basically, like I said, you're going to get involved in things that's going to help shape your practice, the practice of nursing, whether where you work or whatnot. Just be involved in those things. Provision number 8, the nurse collaborates with other health professionals in the public to protect and promote human rights, health diplomacy, and health initiatives. So let's see what's included in that. Health needs and concerns, responsibilities to the public. So basically it's saying health is a universal right, collaboration for health, human rights, and health diplomacy, obligation to advance health and human rights and reduce disparities. So you want to help promote health in the world, not just your facility. You want to know what's going on in the healthcare world. And so you got to, be out there and involved to know about that. That's going to better help you take care of your patients too if you know what's going on. And like I say, you know what's going on, then you'll be able to better contribute to healthcare practices and healthcare policies. All right, provision 9 says the profession of nursing collectively through its professional organizations must articulate nursing values, maintain the integrity of the profession, and integrate principles of social justice into nursing and health policies. So included in that is assertion of values, which means you're going to affirm the values of the profession of nursing. Interprofessional integrity. So maintaining integrity, included in that is also social reform, social justice in nursing and health policies. So again, getting involved in politics to help shape healthcare. Healthcare policies, they can affect where you work, how you perform your job. They can affect your patient as well. So getting involved in politics to help shape healthcare. Okay, so the law is thought of as a minimum ethic that is written and enforced. So the purpose of the law is to protect the rights of one person from infringement by another person. Nursing ethics are similar to, but also different from, the legal aspects that regulate your nursing practice. So nursing ethics are values and ethical principles that govern nursing practice, conduct, and relationships. So an ethical dilemma is a situation in which an ethical decision is required between choices that are equally distasteful. So meaning someone is not going to be happy about the decision that's being made. Most hospitals have an ethics committee that's comprised of nurses, doctors, clergy, social worker, and other allied health members to help resolve these ethical issues. And the ethical dilemma that the ethics committee tends to, it doesn't necessarily have to be a nursing ethical dilemma or a healthcare ethical dilemma. Whatever ethical dilemma is going on in the institution, the ethics committee is there to resolve those issues. The American Nurses Association has published the Nurses Code of Ethics that defines 9 provisions to help guide the practice of nursing. And I also posted this to Blackboard as well for you to view. So you have some principles of ethics. One being autonomy. So autonomy means the patient has the right to make decisions without pressure from anyone. So just because you strongly believe a person should do a certain thing for their health. You can't force that choice or decision on anyone else. I believe someone in the class mentioned immunizations as an issue. Just because you believe in immunizations and a parent might not, you can't force them to have immunizations, so they can make their choices without being pressured from anybody. So as a nurse, you can't try to force your beliefs and values on to your patient. The patient should be given all the facts, the pros and cons of this treatment, what's going to happen if they don't, what will happen if they do, go through the treatment, and then allow them to think through the process and make their own decisions. They have a right to privacy. They have a right to have their own personal values that are different from the accepted medical ethics. Justice. So justice means you should deliver fair and equal treatment to all patients, recognizing but avoiding personal bias. So for example, you cannot deny care to someone because of their diagnosis, or maybe you don't agree with their lifestyle or something like that. You can't deny care to them, so you have to provide care to everyone that's fair and equal. Treat everybody with dignity and respect, no matter what the situation. Fidelity is another ethics, which means you should be true and faithful to the charge of acting in the best interest of the patient. For example, you never want to discuss the patient in a public area, or if you hear another nurse talking disrespectful about a patient, you should speak up. Another principle of ethics is beneficence, which means to do good and put your patient's interests first. For example, if your shift is over and the next nurse has not arrived, you don't just go off duty until you give report to a qualified nurse. Or if you give the wrong medication, you need to report it. So you want to do good by your patient. Put your patient's interests above your own interests. Non-malfeasance. Non-malfeasance means that you do things to ensure no harm comes to your patient. For example, you use the 6 rights of giving medications to ensure the patient doesn't get the wrong medication, or you check the temperature of the bath water before you put your patient in it to ensure your patient doesn't get burned. So you do things that will ensure harm does not come to your patient. Veracity. Veracity means you tell the truth and you do not intentionally try to deceive or mislead as a nurse. Durable power of attorney for health care. This is when a person is legally designated to make healthcare decisions for an individual who is no longer able to make decisions for himself. So this is a type of advanced directive, a durable power of attorney for healthcare. So there is another durable power of attorney for finance, but you have to be sure that it says healthcare, because just because someone has durable power of attorney for finance is not the same as for healthcare. So a person that has power of attorney for finance cannot make healthcare decisions. Another advanced directive would be a living will. A living will, instead of actually assigning a person to make decisions, if you're no longer able to make healthcare decisions for yourself, you've already put it in a legal document. That would be a living will if you've put it in a legal document to say, if I'm no longer able to make healthcare decisions for myself, these are the things that I want done for myself. Okay, obligations are demands that are placed on a person, a profession, a society, or a government, and they can be legal, meaning that they are enforceable by law, or they can be moral, meaning they're based on ethical principles and not enforceable by law. So you can't go to jail if you don't follow a moral or ethical obligation. For instance, if I don't respect my patient, I may have consequences from my employer, but I can't go to jail as a result of not following that moral obligation. All right, everyone has certain rights that's owed to them, such as you have welfare rights, which are your legal rights based on the law. You have ethical rights, which are your moral rights. And you have option rights, which are just your basic human rights of dignity and freedom. So our patients have the right to consent or refuse treatment and care. They have the right to choose between alternative treatments. They have the right to privacy. They have the right to, as I stated before, make decisions without any pressure from anyone, including the nurses. As previously stated, most hospitals have an ethics committee that's comprised of a variety of members of the healthcare team that will resolve ethical dilemmas. Ethical systems are a formal method to make decisions when you have difficult ethical situations that are facing you. So these systems help nurses to make the best decisions possible when interacting with others. So for example, what do you do when the patient's values conflict with your own values? So that these are, some ethical decisions that nurses face every day that they have to make. There's every time they interact with patients or other humans, there's, potential for ethical decision making to take place. Utilitarianism is it's when you look at what the consequences will be if you do something, and you do the thing that will produce the most good. So, for example, your book uses the example of a young woman on welfare gets pregnant unintentionally for the 5th time. So under utilitarianism, the greatest good might be to decrease the financial burden on this young mother. And so to achieve that, she would abort the pregnancy. So the end goal of utilitarianism is happiness. Deontology means you always do the right thing no matter what the consequences might be. So for example, you always tell the truth no matter whose feelings you might hurt. With deontology. So we know HIPAA protects a patient's personal health information, but not only does it apply when we're charting or when we're verbally revealing information, it also applies to social media. You should not be posting pictures of patients on social media. You should not be sending messages about patients to other people on social media. You should not be making fun of patients or their families. You should not be contacting your patients, whether they're current patients or past patients, on social media. You should not be talking negative about your facility or your co-workers. This could be considered bullying. You should not be doing these things. You should not be accessing social media while you're working, or posting anything offensive on social media. You are always, representing the nursing profession, representing your organization. You should not be posting things that are offensive. You always want to think before you post on social media. Social media has gotten people in a lot of trouble unintentionally. I recall a nurse that just not meaning any harm, just congratulating the patient on whatever the issue was. They had finally gotten over that issue that was going on with them. And so the nurse, just so excited for the patient, they had built a relationship, and just so excited for the patient, and just congratulating the patient out on social media. Well, that came back to bite the nurse, because that was considered an ethical issue and a violation of HIPAA. So, that was something that was unintentional, but it was still against HIPAA. So you got to be careful with your social media. So if you violate HIPAA as a nurse, you can be terminated. You can be disciplined by the Board of Nursing, and you could possibly lose your license depending on the degree of the violation. You could receive some significant fines, or you could even get some jail time with HIPAA violations. So your book describes this decision-making process when you're making some ethical decisions. And so it's a problem-solving method, and it's actually based with the nursing process, based on the nursing process. So when we're looking at an ethical dilemma, we want to first collect and analyze and interpret the data. So, just like our nursing process, first we're going to collect all the data, right? Analyze the data. Then we're going to state the problem, state what the dilemma is, right? What's the issue? State the dilemma. Then we're going to consider our consequences. Consider our course of action. So what are our options that we can do? We can either do this and to resolve the issue. We can do that to resolve the issue. So what are our options? What are our courses of action? Then we want to analyze the advantages and disadvantages of each action. So we've identified our possible actions. Now, what are the advantages and disadvantages of each? Make a decision and act on it. So at this point, we're going to implement our decision. And then after that, we got to accept the consequences of the decision that we have made.